Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are here with kind of breaking the norm. We're breaking regular standard programming here. We wanted to just stop what we're doing and talk for a minute about what's going on in our country here in America right now. Um, this is not our normal podcast format, but we wanted to talk about something that's necessary but a little bit heavy, and that is coping in times of crisis. Many of us are witnessing the devastating news of the wildfires raging Los Angeles, as well as the blizzards that are battering the Midwest. I've been affected by both of those things, and whether you're directly impacted or just feeling the weight of these tragedies from afar, it's normal to feel shaken a little bit. But here's the truth. When you're recovering from ultra-processed foods, times of crisis can hit especially hard. So stress and emotions can stir up cravings or leave you feeling out of control. And that's the big thing for me, is that sense of just that free fall, and you're just feeling completely out of control and vulnerable. So today we want to talk about how to stay grounded, protect our recovery, and even find moments of peace and purpose in the midst of this chaos. And today we have one of our RFR leaders with us who specializes in trauma and is familiar with trauma-based things. Shae Williams is with us, and we're going to miss Jamie today, who could not be here with us. Shae is a certified health and life coach, niching in habit and behavior change, a root cause trauma-informed coach with a particular focus on nervous system health, and a functional nutrition counselor approaching her clients holistically. She loves helping people become who they are uniquely and originally created to be, to help them heal, grow, and thrive physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And her mission is to see others set free from what has kept them caged for years, so they can help move the needle in making the world a far better place. So we're going to start out with why crisis like these hit us so deeply, even if we're not directly affected. So Shae, do you want to start out, lead us off with sharing your thoughts about that?
Yeah, thank you, Paige. I'm so grateful personally that we're doing this podcast because, you're over there in the States. I'm all the way here in South Africa, and it's impacting the world. When we look on at crises, whether we're in it at the center of it or whether we, from a distance, it impacts us as human beings. Why? Because there's a big difference between us as human beings and, say, sentient beings, other, animals, that sort of thing. And for me, I always bring the approach, Paige, of let's back it right up. First and foremost, let's look at what's kind of like at the center. And I have a really big belief that everything is connected, we're all unique, and everything matters individually and as a collective, and wired into us as human beings. And I use this a lot when I'm working with people, therapeutic coaching approaches, or whatever the need at that moment is. One of the things we need to remember really well as human beings is that we've got these core human needs.
Mhm.
6 core human needs. And I'll mention them for the sake of our listeners here. So those 6 core basic human needs, which some people will call them different names, but they're love, their safety, their belonging, their purpose, their certainty, and their freedom. Okay. And in times of crisis, in times of trauma, in times of tragedy, often one, some, or all of those core human needs will be feeling a sense of impact. They will be feeling a sense of threat. And as we kind of share today, you'll see a lot of what I say feeds back into these core human needs, okay? And we've got to remember that there's a big difference, like I said, between us and, say, animals. For instance, if we look at a deer being hunted, in the wild, and if that deer gets caught by a predator, there's times when it plays kind of dead. Its whole nervous system goes into a freeze response. That's actually a survival adaptation strategy, because what will happen is the predator will kind of drop it and then walk off, thinking that it's had its catch and, it'll come back for dinner later. But there's a moment often that where that animal will suddenly, you'll see it kind of shake itself off, do this kind of shiver, and then it will move off again. What's different there is that that deer, as far as we know, it doesn't have a meaning attached to that circumstance. The difference for us as humans is we've got meanings attached to these really traumatic circumstances, events, things that are happening individually or collective, and we've got to be able to identify that, the core needs, the meanings, and be able to work from that space as individuals. So yeah, just a little thought
I
there.
love that. That's very helpful to understand that. And from what Shae's telling us, we understand that humans are also wired for connection. So seeing others suffer ignites this empathy deep within us. And I mean, empathy is wonderful, but it also can be very painful too to have all these feelings. And it can spark feelings of helplessness, anxiety, and even grief. But for those of us in recovery, these emotions can trigger these old patterns, reaching for comfort in food or, numbing out. I'm doing air quotes if you can't see me, and slipping into this negative self-talk. You might find yourself saying, what's the point of trying to recover when the world feels like it's falling apart? But here's the thing is your recovery is more important than ever during times like these. I always tell people if there was ever a time to double down and that you need to be clean and clear, these are the times that you've got to hold it together. And by staying strong and grounded, you're just better equipped to help yourself as well as others. So, yeah, like I said, this is the time to really double down on your efforts to keep it all together if you want to be effective in being part of the solution. So let's talk about some practical tools to help you stay balanced. Shae, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I love what you said, Paige, about grounded and effective, because that's such a powerful thing, isn't it? And to be able to stay grounded and to stay effective, we've got to come back to us first for us and then for others. And one of the key ways, and I had to learn this the hard way, is to learn to acknowledge our feelings. We have got feelings, any human being, we have got feelings. And we need to be honest about these things. We need to be able to be honest and real, especially in times of hardship, especially in times of difficulty. I'm a big believer that there isn't good and bad feelings. I do believe in big and strong feelings. I'm a big believer that feelings are just indicators. They're signposts. They're they're messengers that show up that give us clues as to what we need, where there's maybe something that needs nourishing, and what direction we get to go in. And I think what's really important to know is that it's a way of moving, like energy. It's in the word emotions, energy in motion. It's moving what could be potentially toxic out of our body. If we think about our whole kind of digestive, obviously as part of what I do, we look at digestion. Digestion doesn't just happen on a physical level, it happens on an emotional level too. What we're eating and ingesting all the time. So we need to acknowledge our feelings, be honest, be real, none of this toxic positivity where we pretend that everything's okay and we just double down and, grit our teeth and try and get through. That's never going to work. So it's okay to feel sad, scared, angry, mad, sad, the works. Journaling is a great way to do that, to bring those emotions out and onto paper. And the other way I would say is to make sure as much as we can to be like journeying with someone, be sharing with someone, get that stuff out in a safe place where we're able to be validated, because validating our feelings is really important. Being heard, being seen, being validated, that you're not losing your marbles, for want of a better statement, as it were. It's okay, so sharing, getting those feelings, acknowledging, and then moving it out, so we can move forward grounded and able to impact.
I love what you brought up about the toxic positivity because I mean, I know there are people out there that it's just all rainbows and sunshine all the time. And you know what? I really don't like to be around them.
Sure. Sure.
I just want to be real. And
Yeah,
now let me say, while I'm saying that, yes, I do think that reframing and mindset has its role, but just acknowledging when things are really stinky and rotten, I think that's okay to acknowledge that too, instead of just shove it down and put a bow on it. I,
totally.
I s-
Mm,
you see, I know you know what I'm talking about, but anyway,
yeah,
it does have the positivity does have its role, and reframing is a lifesaver, but we just not to take it too far.
totally. 100%. There's a difference between denial and
Yes.
being real, and
Mhm.
acknowledging, but still choosing to move forward with a
Yeah.
place from a place of empowering action rather than denial and stuckness,
Mhm.
as it were. So
Yeah.
100% agree, Paige.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. So one thing that is also helpful is just to focus on what you control. You cannot stop a wildfire or a blizzard, but you can make these small, meaningful choices. Drink water, eat nourishing whole foods, stick to your routines as much as possible. That one's huge for me. Sticking to routine absolutely helps me feel more in control than anything else. Recovery thrives on structure. I know I could not control our blizzard, but I did know I could shovel the driveway and check on my parents and my kids. I know I can't put out the wildfires in LA. Our oldest son and family are in Calabasas and they've been evacuated. So we can say prayers for them, for their safety, and just remain calm and check on them often. I We had Laura Einman on our podcast last year. She was fantastic. She's a confidence coach for women, and she was posting about some of the things that you can do for yourself. And she was talking about just self-care during this time. And someone really on social media dinged her for being so self-centered in a time like this. But I loved how she responded to that person that was attacking her a little bit. She said, "You've got to take care of yourself first to be in a position to help others." And I so agree with her on that. It's not selfish, it's self-care, and you just have to pull it together, or you're not going to last long unless your needs are met. And you started out talking about core human needs. Even as people on the fringes of these crises, we still have core human needs too. And unless we're taking care of those needs, you're just not going to be efficient, and you're not going to go as fast and do as much for others, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah.
100% Paige. Absolutely. Because, the world is always getting a version of us. They're getting our healthiest version, or they're getting our most exhausted version. It's
Hmm.
who we're gifting to the world at any time. And we need to constantly fill up, don't we? We need to constantly. So yeah, when we win, others win. When we lose,
Hmm.
others lose too.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, true. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So another thought I had around this, and I love this one, is limiting our doom scrolling. I'm a big fan. Where our focus goes, our energy flows. And
Hmm.
I heard that statement many years ago. I was part of some training with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. A lot of them in the coaching space will know those names. Where our focus goes, our energy flows. What we feed is going to grow. That's really a very basic principle. And if we're going to feed like our brain, our whole body, our whole nervous system with negative news, things that cause activate our stress response, if the messaging we're constantly feeding our body with and our brain with and our mind with is one of threat and danger and panic, we mustn't be surprised if our body is going to respond as if it is in threat and danger. It's
Hmm.
going to
Hmm.
activate that nervous system. It's going to activate the panic button. It's going to move into states of fight or flight or freeze or all of the above. So, what we're feeding is going to grow. And in these places, you know, it is heartbreaking. That doesn't mean we mustn't be aware of what's going out there. You know, we can't just hide. And again, that feeds back into the toxic positivity. We do need to set boundaries, etc., etc. We do need to stay informed, but let's just be very mindful with how much we're investing, because we're investing in our either our well-being, or we're investing in ill health at those times, you know. So
Yeah,
what's
that's
going
a
to
good point.
activate our nervous system, either the parasympathetic, that rest, that regulated state, or what's going to activate that sympathetic, which is the fight, the fight, flight, the freeze, you know, all of that danger. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, I know. And you can get caught in a rabbit hole on that too. And all of a
Oh
sudden
yeah.
an hour's gone by. You filled an hour of your mind and your chest and your soul and your
Yeah.
inner being with just all this ugh. But
Yeah.
and there's nothing you can do about it. So though that's the caveat with the doom scrolling is
Yeah.
you get caught up over something you
Yeah.
absolutely can't
Yeah.
control.
And the
So
algorithm, sorry, Paige, to interrupt,
no,
the
go ahead.
algorithm knows that.
Yes,
It's
that's
going to
true.
keep
The
feeding it to
algorithms.
you. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sorry to interrupt there, my friendy.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. So another thing that we can do for ourselves is just move your body. Totally, I made sure I quickly got in a workout before we're recording early in the morning here for me, not for Shae, but it was still important for me that that was my only chance today. So I made sure I got up in time to make sure I got that time for a workout in. And I do feel better after I do that. I feel more in control. I
Yeah.
feel more calmed down. Um, it just it movement is medicine for me, and I think really it is for everyone. And it can be just yoga, stretching, or walking indoors, but physical activity can pent up stress and bring you back to the present moment. The next this for me is right next to food, sleep, and spirituality for me. This is what calms me on most days. I can take nervous medicine or I can exercise. It
Yeah.
really helps me burn off that excess mental chatter and helps me think straight. I even liken it to active meditation.
Mm,
I'm not great at that meditating, but if I can do the active meditation through exercise, that I can't say enough about the benefits of exercise. That for me really helps. And it doesn't have to be a killer session in the gym. Just get moving in some fashion. And if it's really a tough day, if you can do it outside, that's even better because you get the benefits of the color green being in
yes.
nature bathing.
Yes, please. One of my favorites. No, I think that's a really key statement that you've made there, Paige, about the movement. Again, back to what I said earlier. Remember, emotion is energy in motion. We got to move it out. It's got to go somewhere. Because if it doesn't go somewhere, just like those chemicals in our body, all those hormones, if we don't get rid of them, they get reabsorbed back into our body. And hello, toxicity, there's a big word.
Mhm.
Hello, toxic system, hello, toxic, and so we've got to move it out. We've got to get it going somewhere. And as you say, with the green spaces, beautiful, beautiful point there. So yeah, absolutely. And another thing that is really helpful when it comes to, tragedy, trauma, crises, all these things, whether it's, our individual space or collective. Paige and I were talking a little bit earlier, and I'll just say this for the benefit of our listeners as well. For me, love always wins, and love, being able to reach out for connection, to reach out back to those core human needs, that love, that safety, that belonging, that purpose, certainty, freedom. When we're reaching out for connection, we're saying, hey, I see you. And people, when we're in places of pain, we want to be seen. We just want to know that we're not alone. The temptation is to isolate, the
Oh
temptation
yeah.
to withdraw, isn't it? Because again, that's how we survive. That's how we protect. If we've been hurt, if our heart's been hurt, we find ourselves retreating. So reaching out for connection, just saying, hey, I see you. Will you see me? And practical ways is reach out to a friend, just call a friend, just drop a text message, drop a voice note, join online recovery groups. I love that about real food recovery here. As we're going through our different stuff, One of my biggest joys is the 8 a.m. connection hour that I host Monday through Thursday, because everyone comes in from their different places and spaces, but we're connecting, we're sharing. There's this space where there's the shared safety and love, you know. So acts of connection can really bring a sense of, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel safe. You know, it activates what I love is one of those hormones, oxytocin, you know, which amongst a whole myriad of things, it's what they call fondly the love hormone. But it plays a huge role in social bonding and emotional attachment. It helps us feel like we're not on our own. So reach
Yeah.
out, reach out. It's a huge key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I always feel better. I'm so guilty of just isolating, but then somebody might text me or reach out and I'll go, "Oh yeah, that does feel better too." I just get a bump in
Yeah.
my mood when I connect with someone.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about routine earlier, and whatever you can do to stick as close to routine as possible. Keep your meals simple for now if you have to do that. I know my brain is most comfortable in routine, and the brain loves a plan. So that's
Yes.
very calming to your
Totally.
system. So this is a huge gift I can give myself in times of stress. I really can't emphasize
Yeah.
routine enough. So I guess that's all I need to say about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so good. No, Paige, that's an absolute key because our body loves consistency. Our body loves balance. Our body is always trying to bring itself back to a state of homeostasis, fancy word for just being regulated, finding a
Yeah.
rhythm, you know, in a rhythm. And when it's out of rhythm, it's going to find, you know, it's going to cause all kinds of things. And so non-negotiables in this time that have a consistent rhythm and routine to them is calming, it's healing. And one of my key ways, and I know you know this, a lot of our community at Real Food knows this, they smile at me with this. One of my non-negotiables, which is also one of our branches, and it's free, is sleep. You know,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
I will not budge on my sleep. You know, I know when we're in places of uncertainty and stress and all of that, sleep can be tough. But even if it means going to bed at the time that you would normally go to sleep and you're just at least giving your body that chance to rest, it's huge. I mean, just the science behind a lack of sleep. Sleep deprivation has a myriad
Oh,
of
oh yeah.
negative things, increased
Mhm.
hunger. We then end up reaching for quick fix foods which don't have nutrients in them. We get tireder. Our whole thermoregulation is out of whack. You know, stress hormones, etc., etc. The list goes on and on and on. So, a definite non-negotiable. And as I said, it's free. Let's double down
Mhm.
on our sleep,
Yep.
especially in these times. So, yeah. Oh, and another thing, it also impacts our cravings, especially when it comes to recovery
Sure.
around food addiction.
Yeah.
It activates our craving pathways, which, you know, drives addictive behaviors. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I said I had said enough about routine, but then I thought about one more thing.
Oh, bring it on.
To get it out of my body. I have to
Get
share
it out.
it. It helps. I like to know what to expect. So that's
Yes.
another thing about routine is I'm better when I know what's coming, what's happening, what to plan for. Okay. So the other thing we know is that when tragedy strikes, it's easy to feel powerless. But what if we turn that powerlessness into action, which is what we're trying to do today. We're trying to be
Yeah.
active and not tone deaf about what's happening in the American country right now. So you want to talk about that a little bit, Shae,
Mm.
some things that we can do action wise?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. One of my favorite, oh, I've got lots of favorites. You'll hear me say that often, but one of my favorite things that I will use when journeying with folk is look for opportunities, but then take action, okay? Because not
Right.
many things dispel anxiety better than taking action.
Hmm.
Done is better than perfect. Take messy action. Just do something. Move yourself, as it were. Do something, you know. And again, this feeds beautifully into one of our 6 core human needs. When we choose to volunteer, when we choose to donate, we can all do something. We might not be able to donate millions, but we can send a message of encouragement. We
Yeah.
can, there's always something that we can do. We are wired for purpose. One of those 6 core human needs, as I said earlier, is purpose or contribution, as some would call it.
Yeah.
It does something to us. I don't know if you've ever been in a place, but I know for me, Paige, when I just give in some way, whether it's emotions or encouragement or whatever that looks like, it does something in us as humans. It takes the focus off us, not in a negative toxic positivity way, but it just helps us look up and look out, looking up and looking out and saying again, hey, I see you. I see you and you matter. It's honoring these other human beings, irrespective of our differences of opinion. Because again, like I said earlier, love always wins. And I think at the heart of volunteering and donating and giving, whether it's, organizations or whatever, I think there's love that's the motivator there, and
Oh,
that
sure.
wins every time, in my
Yeah.
belief.
I agree with you totally. So another thing that it's funny because we talked about this a little bit earlier, but do practicing gratitude, again,
Mm,
not the toxic positivity, but
sure.
practicing gratitude can help. It might feel a little counterintuitive, but gratitude can be a grounding force. If you just write down like 3 things you're thankful for each day, no matter how small, it's always amazing to me how a mindset shift can literally change
Mm,
everything. As the saying goes, that you talked about this earlier, that your energy flows where your focus goes. So if you do have a grateful mindset,
mhm.
it changes something chemically in
Oh
the
yeah.
body for us. And if you just focus on the negative, you will be negative. But if you look for silver linings, you're always going to find what you're looking for. And silver linings are always available. You do have
Yeah.
to keep looking. I mean, my family is in not a great place right now. Like I said, they've been evacuated for it's been almost a week now, and what they're going to go back to, I don't know. I don't know. Even if their house doesn't burn, I still don't know what the circumstances will be. My son sells real estate for a living, so I don't know what that will look like. We had another member of our community who lost their home completely. But silver linings are they're okay, their pets were okay, they're safe now. um Same with my our son and his family, they're safe.
Yeah.
So there a lot of tragedy, but do try and uh, again,
Yeah.
not toxic positivity,
Yes.
because I'm not
Yeah.
ignoring what's going on, but we are grateful that people are safe. So you can find a few things to still be grateful for in the midst of tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely, Paige. It's such a key because our cells are listening all the time. Our bodies
Yeah.
hear what we're saying all the time, and what we speak does spark some sort of reaction, what we speak to ourselves, what we speak to others. So, yeah, I think there's a really important process there, as you've said, and to really lean into that gratitude without, like you say, the toxic positivity. It's still hey, what we're looking for is always freely available. Look for problems,
Yes.
we'll find problems. Look for opportunities, we'll find them. So we get to choose that, but not be toxic and
Mhm.
denial, as it were. So
Right.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think we've kind of touched on this one. It's been kind of woven into a few of the things we've shared. But I think if we can focus on dedicating our recovery to a cause bigger than us,
Yeah.
it's super helpful. And I often say that recovery is a journey, not a destination. It's who we're becoming in the process. And out of our who then flows our do. But if we can dedicate our recovery to a bigger cause, than us, we're then showing up. It's how we nourish our body, physically, emotionally, mentally, when we're staying strong. That gives us the ability to either, and we said this quite earlier on, to either positively impact or we're unable to. if we strengthen we're as strong as we are is as much as we can give out, as it were, you know. Again, that principle, first for me and then for others. You know, we nourish ourselves, we strengthen ourselves, but not just for me. There's always a bigger picture. How do I get to look to the bigger picture, that where I show up in my recovery is actually going to have a much bigger ripple effect that I don't even know. You know, I mean, we hear so many stories, don't we, of when such and such showed up at this place and said this encouraging thing or did that, just the ripple effects that come from that. I think we mustn't underestimate how, when we focus on so much more than ourselves, what stories and impacts can come from that place, you know, which is exciting. There's an adventure in that. Even in tragedy, something beautiful can come out of it, you know.
Yeah, I love what you said about do for me and then do for others. Really, who we are is how we show up for other people too. I don't think we can stress that enough. So I appreciate that point. And
Yeah,
again, sticking to routine is also, I'm going to bring that up just one more time. I think that does,
yeah,
in a sense, is helping others too, because we're just so grounded
yeah,
when we have our feet solidly planted
totally.
on
Yeah,
on the floor. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just another one. I can't say enough about routine. So you go ahead, Shae, and talk about
Yeah, no,
self-compassion.
definitely. And again, just to highlight again, that routine is another way of showing self-compassion, because it's out of
Yeah.
that place that we continue to be able to reach out and hold space for others, you know, and reach out. But yeah, self-compassion. Oh gosh, isn't this really at the heart of true recovery? It's a shift from judgment to curiosity, isn't it? I really believe that at the
Yes.
heart of true recovery lies grace and self-compassion and curiosity. You know, like really getting really gentle with yourself, because so many people who, and I was one of them, have come from that background of some form of addiction. There's so much shame and blame and judgment involved, so much lack of a grace towards ourselves, you know, involved, because that's what we experienced. And therefore, that's how we've learnt to speak to ourselves and to others generally, you know. And I think we've got to remember that in tragedy, in crisis, in pain, in trauma, there's going to be a lot of stress. You know, our physical
Yeah.
bodies are experiencing huge amounts of stress at any given time, which then activates the stress pathways, which then activates the craving pathways, all those, you know, pathways that our brain, just on a physiological level, has wired in pathways and solutions to the stressor, I'm saying in air quotes, you know, previous strategies that it's had wired in to how it would have previously met painful things, or to disconnect from pain or stress or whatever. And so we're in this space, we're completely wiring in new strategies, new ways. So we're going to make mistakes as human beings. You know, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have slips. We just need to get curious and be aware of it, and
Mhm.
slowly more and more close the gap. Get curious. Oh, that's interesting. So I slipped up there because what was going on in my environment? What was going on in my, you know, my space? Like looking at the bigger picture again of what's going on, not using it as an excuse, but getting really curious and understanding, because I really believe that that fosters growth, you know, and it fosters a space of being able to do better the next time and learning, you know. So, oh gosh, there's so
Oh,
much I
yeah.
could.
Yeah, it opens up the door to progress instead
Yeah,
of saying
yeah,
progress is over. No, this is part of progress. This is what progress looks like, is
mm,
and stopping it and looking at the side steps with
yeah,
compassion
yeah.
versus judgment. I love that.
And just
Um,
quickly, sorry to say, it is also bringing in, like being humility, like being teachable, you know, that it's actually
mhm,
okay. Like this is a process, this is a journey again, not a destination, you know, and we're
mhm.
able to then witness that in others too, you know.
Totally. I agree completely.
Sure.
Another thing that is helpful is to pray. And this
Mm,
is not it, we don't know about everyone's religious or spiritual beliefs and background, and that doesn't even matter. I'm just talking about just stopping and praying, or if formal prayers are something you're not comfortable with or used to, just simply sending like good vibes to those who are suffering if you're more comfortable with approaching it from that angle. And but it helps you to feel like you are being part of the solution for those people that are suffering. It makes you feel like you're doing something, and it helps them feel better as well.
mhm.
And so you're helping them and yourself at the same time. And quite frankly, it just can't hurt. And again, we're not pushing religion, anything. We're just saying that this is one option to be
Yeah,
helpful if you're
yeah,
comfortable in that arena.
yeah,
And one thing that I've heard in recovery is if like you're having a craving, stop and just pray for everybody in
yeah.
the universe that's having a craving right then.
Mm,
It kind of dissipates that panic and energy and takes it down. So if you're stopping and saying a prayer for all those people who are suffering right now, there is a very lovely, calming, soothing balm that is
yeah,
rubbed on your heart
yeah,
that just takes the sting down from a 10 to maybe a 3. It's just
yeah,
something that you can do versus
yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
So in that sense,
yeah,
it's helpful.
yeah,
Shay, you want
yeah,
to share any other thoughts about that
yeah,
or any
yeah, I
support
would. Mm,
practices when
mm. Yeah,
tragedy
just
is knocking?
yeah, I'll just quickly share on what you said about, the praying. And I know, as you said, this is not about pushing anything religious or anything like that at all. But what I love about that as a practice or a ritual is it shifts our focus. But what it
Yeah.
also does, and I'm a science nerd. I love the whole science and neuroscience side of things. Just even that shift of that focus, some families or people will have a ritual of either prayer or gratitude before a meal or anything just on a scientific physiological level, it brings your nervous system into a state of parasympathetic rest, digest, feel, heal state. It
Mhm.
slows everything down. So it's almost like a beautiful way just to bring your nervous system into a regulated state. There's a whole load of science and research and evidence around that, and again, shifting the focus as well to there's actually more to this than me. So yeah, I love that you brought that up, Paige. I think it's a beautiful, and we can all have different practices or rituals in that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think in all my years, Paige, of journeying with folk through you know, whether it's healing from food addiction or different addictions, or it's trauma, or it's them wanting to just become the best version of who they are, meeting the person where they are. There's a few little things that I've picked up along the way that is really, really important, I think, and helpful to remember. And especially when we're in the midst or the throes of crisis, tragedy, trauma, uncertainty, because again, remember, certainty is a core human need. So in
Hmm.
crisis, there's a lot of uncertainty around. One of the things that's really key, there's three little points that I want to bring up. One of the keys is we've got to remember that we need to bring ourselves into a space of safety, because if we don't feel safe, we won't heal, we won't process, we won't regulate. And I know that can seem a little bit unattainable in the middle of tragedy. But being able to define then what safety looks like for us. What does it look like, sound like, feel like, smell like, taste like for you? Who are the people? What are the places? What are the non-negotiables? Back to what you were saying, routine, the sleep, all those things. What are those things that activate a sense of safety and certainty in the midst of all of this uncertainty? What really fills the gap of uncertainty is what I can anchor myself onto in that moment, whether it's practices, my non-negotiables, my routines, whatever those are. Be with those who activate calm, not panic in my world. Draw close to people who you're going to who are going to nourish you with their words, with their actions, with being seen, felt, heard, where you feel a sense of safety and seenness, being mindful of what we fill our minds with, because what we feed will grow, you know. So who do we want to be? Ask ourselves, who do I want to be known as, and how do I want to show up in this space, first for me and then for others, so that we can be grounded and impactful as humans. So just a few thoughts there, my friend.
Yeah, love that. And I love all your thoughts. I'm so grateful you could do this with me because you're so well versed in this arena, and I already feel more calm. In fact, I was a little emotional before we started today. And speaking of prayer, Shae did a prayer for us before we started, and I immediately felt better. Oh, I feel getting a little choked up again. But yeah, I
Yeah,
just that it works. It does work, and connecting together obviously is
yeah.
helpful as well. So I appreciate all that. One of the things at Real Food Recovery is that our logo is the tree of life. And we were very purposeful about picking this to represent our philosophy. So there's an activity I'm going to share with you that might help in times of tenderness. So this is something you can try if you would like. If you want to picture yourself as this sturdy tree with roots anchoring you deep into the earth. We know the wind may howl in our life and the storms may rage around us, but your roots can hold you steady. So if you can just picture yourself as this tree rooted deep into the ground and going deeply to anchor you, I think it can help to just stand still, close your eyes if you can, and just feel yourself cementing yourself to the ground, just in a sturdy, resilient, safe way.
Beautiful.
And you can just tell yourself at that time, I'm resilient, I'm strong, I'm capable of weathering these storms. These are wonderful mantras that you can repeat to yourself as you feel this strength flowing through your body. So as we wrap up, I want to just say healing is a revolutionary act. By
Yeah.
choosing recovery, you're choosing hope, not just for yourself, but for the world around you. So if
Mm,
you're feeling overwhelmed by the events in LA or the Midwest, or really wherever you are today, big or small, just take it one moment at a time. Lean
mm,
on the tools that we talked about today and know that your recovery matters even in the face of tragedy. But really, we just want to thank you for spending this time with us today. Very, very big thank you to Shae for joining me and sharing her wisdom and helping others. She is a vital part of Real Food Recovery, and we just appreciate her tremendously. And if today's episode resonates with you, share it with someone who might need it. And as always, take care of yourself. You are worth the efforts that it takes to do self-care. And if you're struggling, you can always reach out to us at Real Food Recovery, and we are happy to help you along during these tender times. And if you want to know more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. Thanks again for being here with us today. Bye-bye, guys.
bye.